r/TrueScaryStories by Atypical Dragon 96, the Tokyo Pink Room Lady. Context. This is a real story of probably the weirdest thing I've ever seen. I was serving a Mormon mission at the time in Tokyo, Japan. If it weren't for the fact that I experienced it with another person, I'd probably think I hallucinated the whole thing. I'm not a super big believer in the paranormal, and I don't think that's what's happened here either. But I have a hard time wrapping my head around this one. Story time. This takes place about 10 years ago while I was doing some missionary work in Tokyo, Japan. I was a Mormon at the time, and as is custom in the Mormon church, when I turned 18, I submitted my mission papers and was called to Tokyo. Mormon missions are 2-year ordeals, where you are assigned at a random location in the world, told to learn the language they speak in that area, and tell everyone you meet about Jesus. While I no longer hold the Mormon faith, I always be grateful for the adventure that was in my 2 years in Japan. While you're on a mission for the church, you follow a strict regimen and are assigned a companion, that is to be your proselytizing peer during the course of your time in the field. While in the field, you are assigned to different areas as the mission president sees fit. At the time of the story, I was assigned to the Kichijoji area near central Tokyo. It was early fall, and the leaves had just begun to change color. My companion and I had hit the streets hard ever since I had transferred into Kichijoji. Kichijoji is a beautiful district in Tokyo, and I believe has won multiple awards for the most desired place to live in Japan. Its maze of alleyways and hole-in-the-wall ramen shops mixed with sprawling parks and trails give it a natural, wondrous atmosphere. Kichijoji was a small area within our mission, but densely packed. You could get lost in that place, and that was the situation we found ourselves in the day we met her. I was on splits with another companion that day. Basically, splits is when you swap partners for a day with another pair of missionaries. My partner that day was an enemy of mine in the early days of my mission, but we had resolved our differences and become almost friends when we set up for our splits. Looking forward to change of pace that splits could provide, we decided to do something a little different than our normal preaching. That day, we decided we would try to find an inactive member of the Kichijoji congregation, someone who had been coming to the church steadily for a while, but then fell away for one reason or another. All we had on the person we were trying to find was a name and an address. The address was located in a town a few stops down from us on a weird smaller train line that we almost never use. Once we arrived at our stop, immediately the vibes in that region were off. The normally busy and bright atmosphere of Kijijoji had fallen away and given rise to empty streets and rundown buildings. Nevertheless, we pushed on, as you may expect of two foreigners, though wandering through a dense city. We almost immediately became lost. A few strange occurrences happened to us as we tried to right our bearings. But I won't go into much details about, but I will list off just to give a vibe of what this area was like. First, we talked to a lady from Turkey that owned a small cafe that claimed her brother had run off back to Turkey to settle a blood feud and never returned. She also believed that a giant celestial peacock rules the world and will one day kill all the non-believers. Lol. Second, we were startled when a man in full surgery gear ran out screaming to the streets covered in blood from what I believe was some sort of veterinary office. Upon seeing us though, he stopped, immediately composed himself, and turned back around into the building. Finally, We stopped a somewhat normal dude who offered to show us to the way to the building we were looking for. I say somewhat normal because I swear the dude was Batman. When we finally arrived at the place and turned to thank him for showing us the way there, he had vanished. Full on Batman style, vanished. I don't know, he probably just walked around the corner super fast or something, but he was so quiet and quick it was weird. My partner and I were somewhat surprised by the state of the place, even for the general disrepair of the area. As soon as we walked into the first hallway, though, we realized we had probably come all this way for nothing. The lights in the hallway of the building were out, so the only light coming through was from the moss covered glass that lined one side of the hallway on each floor. Each door in the hallway of the building has a small window to the left of it, and our hearts began to sink as we walked past the first view. Through the windows, we could see that the floorboards and the walls in almost every room had been ripped out. Thick patch of black mold clung to everything within the building's interior, and at this point we realized the place is probably condemned. We head back downstairs at the other end of the building, and as we are descending, we start to hear faint sounds of classical instrumental music. We both look at each other. Neither of us have any idea what the source is. We descended further, and as we reach the bottom, we find the source of the music. The window of the last room at the end of our side of the hallway is open, and a light is on the inside. We approach. To reiterate, we haven't seen a single soul in this entire building up to this point. But we were about to meet the building's only resident. Nothing could have prepared us for what we saw next. As we looked through the window, we got a solid view of the kitchen, and everything is pink. I'm talking hot pink, Barbie pink, neon flamingo pink. And when I say everything, I mean everything. The floor, the walls, the ceiling, the cabinets, the countertops, all pink. There is a small radio playing in the windowsill, the source of the music. There is one thing that stands out from all this pink, however. A gray metal pole with some tape wrapped on its various places stands from ceiling to the floor in the middle of the room. A small pink stool sits beside it. The room is spotless, not a speck of dirt or mold anywhere, despite the next room down from this one being destroyed like all the rest. At the far end of the kitchen, there are some sliding paper doors that gives a quick peek into the tatami room, basically a Japanese-style bedroom. In the tatami room, all we can see is some large stuffed animals piled up. My companion and I look warily at each other and briefly discuss what a truly strange room this is. Then we call out a hello in Japanese through the window. A few moments go by and an answer returns in somewhat like a child's voice. But the words are completely indecipherable and mumbled, coming from the other room. We call out again saying, "We are looking for someone who we think used to live here. Do you know if there's another building everyone is moved into?" What we saw next is a bit hard to fully describe, and I want to be respectful as I believe that the person we met was incredibly disabled. Nonetheless, they were very unnerving to meet. Crawling out from behind the paper doors in some sort of crab walk fashion, we saw an elderly lady in an incredibly thin arms and legs, a spherical body dressed in an oversized t-shirt or a nightgown of sorts. Her eyes are slightly bulging from her face and pointed off in opposite directions. There was something almost spider like in a way that she moved, and me and my companion are completely flabbergasted. She was speaking the whole time as she approaches the pole in the middle of the room. Though we're only understanding about every other word, as she had a very mumble way of speaking. Her speech style was the type of a child might use, giving a further unsettling tone to the encounter. Once she reaches the pole in the middle of the room, she props herself first into the stool, then begins to climb her way up to the pole. I have no idea why or how she did this. Her arms and legs look so thin, almost just like skin over bone. Yet somehow, she lifts herself several feet up the pole and wraps herself around it. We are so shocked that I don't think we even said anything for like half a minute. We just stood there and might have let out a few nervous chuckles. Once we regained our composure, we asked her question again if she knew if everyone got moved out to another building. She spoke, but was difficult to understand even over the year of experience speaking to random people every day in Japanese. This is basically what me and my companion were able to put together as we spoke with her. Everyone gone, everyone sick. Something about mold? She, the only one left. We wrapped up our conversation pretty quick after that. I'm a bit embarrassed to say, but we were both pretty off put by the sight of a tiny elderly Japanese lady wrapped around a pole in a hot pink room. We left the building at a pace just shy of a jog. She was still speaking in tangent when we left. We discussed with our normal companions that night. They didn't believe us, and I don't blame them. I don't think I would have believed me either. My companion was persistent, however, about wanting to see the pink room. So we planned to go walk by the building just to walk by and see the room the day after the next. This next part is the only part of the story that I'm not really sure how to explain. I take my normal companion with me to the place and retrace our steps through the neighborhood. We pass the cafe, the vet's office, and finally arrived at the apartments. I know for a fact that it was them because they were very different compared to the rest of the area. Same moss and vines, same rusted chain link fence, same building with no working lights, same mold and ripped out of interiors, same kitchen windows to the left of the doors. I take him to the exact spot the pink room was 2 days prior, and it is ripped out and covered in mold like everything else. It doesn't look like the demolition crew came in. It looked like everything was ripped up and rotting over just like every other room, and every trace of pink is gone. Now I'm panicking. I take him up and down every floor and every building in that complex, and nothing. It's as though the pink room never existed. I tell my splits companion about this when I get back, and he is super freaked out. He goes looking and doesn't find it either. I texted him every couple of years to make sure I'm not going crazy and all that really did happen. He always says how weird the whole experience was. Neither of us are sure what happened to the room, but we both know that it happened. Years later, looking back on it, I believe that the pink room lady was probably just an elderly disabled woman that had some relative in the area to clean up and look after her. I feel somewhat ashamed of the fear I felt towards her, and I'm unsure she was probably also startled to see two foreigners stand by her kitchen window. The logical part of me knows that there must be an answer as to why the room wasn't there when we went back. I just haven't found that answer yet. This is by far the weirdest things I've ever seen in my life as of yet, though, and I reckon I'll be thinking about the pink room for the rest of my life.